Question number 49 of the Summa Theologia is the second and last question in the two-question treatise on the distinction of good and evil. And once again, I'll give you a little disclaimer. There are going to be a few creepy pictures in this video, like the one right here of this skull. So just keep that in mind in case you have any little eyes that are watching this with you. And this is going to be a logical follow-through from the last question, because the last question, St. Thomas Aquinas was trying to kind of explore what is evil, because if God is good and all being is good, what exactly is evil? And he came to the conclusion, as you know, if you watch yesterday's video, that it really doesn't have a being of its own. It's just an absence of the good. But at the same time, it does exist. We see evil in the world. So now in this question, he's going to spend 3 articles focusing on what causes evil, because even if it doesn't have being or nature of its own, it still exists. And so anything that exists, any effect, has to have a cause. So where's it coming from, and what exactly is causing it to exist in the first place? And in the first article, now this is not a creepy picture, this is a beautiful picture, isn't it? Whether good can be the cause of evil. Doesn't that sound ironic, that good would be the cause of evil? But St. Thomas Aquinas is going to basically come down and say, well, yeah, in a sense, that is the case. And here's how he goes about saying it. He says, it must be said that every evil in some way has a cause. For evil is the absence of the good, which is natural and due to a thing. Okay, good is natural. Things are naturally good. But that anything fail from its natural and due disposition can come only from some cause drawing it out of its proper disposition. For a heavy thing is not moved upwards except by some impelling force. Now, the reason he uses that example is that a heavy thing naturally falls down. But if we see a heavy thing going up, that means there's some contrary cause that's creating it to kind of go against its nature, right? If you see a rock going up in the air, well, something sent it up there, right? Because rocks don't naturally fly up in the air, right? Nor does an agent fail in its action except from some impediment, but only good can be a cause, because nothing can be a cause except inasmuch as it has being, and every being as such is good. And if we consider the special kinds of causes, we see that the agent, the form, and the end import some kind of perfection which belongs to the notion of good. So all 3 of those aspects are all related to perfection and to good. So where does the evil come from? Where does it come from? Then he says, even matter, as a potentiality to good, has the nature of good. Now that good is the cause of evil by way of the material cause was shown above, for it was shown that good is the subject of evil. Okay, so we have to kind of paradoxically look to the good in order to find the evil, because the evil is just an absence of good, so it has to be somehow related to the good. That's what he's saying here. But evil has no formal cause, rather it is a privation of form. Likewise, neither has it a final cause, but rather it is a privation of order to the proper end. Now notice, he's talking about material cause, he's talking about formal cause, he's talking about final cause. This is the Aristotelian 4 causes that Thomas relies on, and the 4 causes make so much sense. I would definitely commit those 4 to memory, because you can pretty much explain everything with these 4 causes. All right, since not only the end has the nature of good, but also the useful, which is ordered to the end, evil, however, has a cause by way of an agent, not directly, but accidentally. Okay, accidental things are not part of the very essence of the thing. All right, so he gives an example here to close out this article, which I find interesting. He says, therefore, as the more perfect the fire is in strength, fire is in fire, so much the more perfectly does it impress its form, so also the more perfectly does it corrupt the contrary. Hence, that evil and corruption befall air and water comes from the perfection of the fire. So the more perfect fire is, the more it sucks in the air and extinguishes the water. So evil, in a sense, comes to the air and the water because of the perfection of fire. Now that's very important. But this is accidental because the fire does not aim at the privation of the form of water, but at the bringing in of its own form, though by doing this it also accidentally causes the other. Okay, we'll give some other examples in a moment in the world of animals that will highlight this. Hence it is true that evil in no way has any but an accidental cause, and thus good is the cause of evil. All right, whether the supreme good God is the cause of evil. Now, having been through almost 50 questions of the Summa, what would you say to this? Do you think that God can be the cause of evil? Because in some sense, Thomas is going to say yes. Can you figure this one out? He says the evil which consists in the defect of action is always caused by the defect of the agent. But in God there is no defect, but the highest perfection. Hence, the evil which consists in defect of action, or which is caused by defect of the agent, is not reduced to God as its cause. But the evil which consists in the corruption of some things is reduced to God as their cause. And this appears as regards both natural things and voluntary things. Okay, voluntary would be the things like us that have free will. The example we just said a moment ago about the fire and the water. Okay, who causes the fire to exist? Well, God does. So then he would have to be the cause of the corruption of the water in that particular case. It is manifest that the form which God chiefly intends in things created is the good of the order of the universe. Now, this is very key. Okay, God is a big picture kind of person. Now, the order of the universe requires that there should be some things that can and do sometimes fail, and thus God, by causing in things the good of the order of the universe, consequently, and as it were by accident, causes the corruption of things. I told you I was going to give you an example. When a lion chases down and tears an antelope to pieces and eats it, right, that's obviously not good for the antelope, right? But it's good for the lion. And God has allowed this in the order of the universe because the lion has to eat. And the lion eats meat of the antelope, and so the antelope has to fail and be corrupted in order that the lion will survive. That's an example that St. Thomas Aquinas has used in the Summa. But when we read that God hath not made death, the sense is that God does not will death for its own sake. Nevertheless, the order of justice belongs to the order of the universe, and this requires that penalty should be dealt out to sinners, and so God is the author of the evil, which is the penalty. Remember, pain versus fault in last question, yeah? But not the evil which is fault by reason of what is said above. All right, so isn't that interesting that God in some way, if you look at it, now this is when I was getting pictures of evil things, this is like the most goofy evil picture that I could possibly find that isn't going to like terrify and give kids nightmares, but at the same time it kind of depicts evil, right? Article 3, last article of this question, whether there be one supreme evil which is the cause of every evil. And this is a very important question because there definitely have been dualistic religions like the Manichaeans that Augustine fell into that thought there's a good God and a bad God. The good God controls all the good stuff. The bad God controls, or the evil God, you could say, or Satan controls all the bad stuff, and they're like battling it out. Thomas definitely does not believe that's the case. It appears from what proceeds that there is no one first principle of evil as there is one first principle of good. First, indeed, because the first principle of good is essentially good. Of its essence, it is good, as was shown above. Okay, he's going all the way back to question number 6. Okay, what was that? The goodness of God, right? But nothing can be essentially bad, for it was shown above that every being as such is good, question 5, and that evil can exist only in good as its subject, question 48. Secondly, because the first principle of good is the highest and perfect good, which pre-contains in itself all goodness. See all this review of things that we've already learned in the past? God contains the perfection of all things, right? All the perfections are in God. That was a whole question. But there cannot be a supreme evil, because although evil always lessens good, yet it never wholly consumes it, and thus, while good ever remains, nothing can be wholly and perfectly bad. Therefore, the philosopher says that if the this is a really interesting quote. Aristotle says, if the wholly evil could be, wholly, W-H-O-L-L-Y, evil could be, it would destroy itself, because all good being destroyed, evil itself would be taken away, since its subject is good. Okay, evil can only exist in the presence of good. Evil can't exist on its own. So if all the good was taken away, evil would have to vanish as well. Isn't that interesting? Thirdly, because the very nature of evil is against the idea of a first principle, both because every evil is caused by good, and because evil can be only an accidental cause. Okay, this is all review. And thus it cannot be the first cause, for the accidental cause is subsequent to the direct cause. Those, however, who upheld two first principles, one good and the other evil, fell into this error from the same cause, whence also arose other strange notions of the ancients, namely because they failed to consider the universal cause of all being and considered only the particular causes of particular effects. This should also remind you of the fifth proof for the existence of God, where there is the governance of the world, right? And also the unity of God. Okay, all things are directed to one thing. Okay, it's all coming back. This is all related to one universal cause, and there can't be two universal causes or two that are like competing with each other, right? As for instance, okay, this is an example here. As for instance, if one should say that the nature of fire was evil because it burnt the house of a poor man, the judgment, however, of the goodness of anything does not depend upon its order to a particular thing, but rather upon what it is in itself and on its order to the whole universe. Oh, this carries so many implications. When bad things happen to us, if we're wise, we can say, how does this play into the order of the whole universe, rather than just the fact that I got a flat tire or I got, fired from my job? Maybe there's something bigger going on here. You see how this is important? Wherein every part has its own perfectly ordered place. Okay, last paragraph. Likewise, because they found two contrary particular causes of two contrary particular effects, they did not know how to reduce these contrary particular causes to the universal common cause. And therefore, they extended the contrariety of causes even to the first principles. But since all contraries agree in something common, it is necessary to search for one common cause for them above their own contrary proper causes. Okay, so everything ultimately comes down to the first cause, which is the second proof for the existence of God. Remember, the first mover, the first cause, the uncaused cause, the providence of God. All things come about because of the intellect and the will of God, the unity of God. Okay, it's fun to piece it all together, right? And believe me, I'm doing this as well as something pops up. And Thomas makes it easy on you, because he's telling you what question of the Summa he's referring to, and it's all tying together. All right, so that is going to do it for this treatise on the distinction of good and evil. And we now are going into question number 50. And question 50 begins the treatise on the angels. Okay, and that's going to be about 15 questions on angels. There actually are more questions about the angels after the treatise on human nature, but we'll talk about all that as we get through it. So this brings us to an end of the distinction of things. We're moving on to the angels after this. God bless you. Thanks for watching. St. Thomas Aquinas, pray for us.